talking about the intricacies of
that's what I'm here to do,
internecine New York City theater drama. I don't know if that's what our audience wants.
Yeah,
Maybe it is.
What's important is that everyone has COVID and Broadway is back.
That's right, Brian.
That is very, very important.
I'm here to talk about the intricacies and behind the scenes of this very podcast because it feels like I'm part of a fuck a fan win.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the worst of all possible worlds, the first and only podcast that fucks the fans.
That's
I'm
right.
the worst of all possible Brians.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
And joining us today is a man of many names. At least I have spoken many names. Like the one that sticks the most is woke try hard.
Yes.
But yes, Jake Beckhard.
Host of Blue Balls, the podcast, if you are all soccer fans, a theater director, a raconteur, a man about town, a producer now too as well. One of the great theater people we have working in New York right now.
What,
and he's
Jake?
Also, yeah.
Come on,
very
just because
sweet
it's a
thing to
fuck a
say.
fan competition doesn't mean you have to suck him off.
Look, okay. We brought Jake on the podcast because he is probably one of the most unapologetic chess heads that I know.
Yes.
And we're here to talk chess today.
Goddamn right we are.
Wait, hold on. Fuck. I thought we were going to be talking about Chest the Musical.
No,
My
don't
favorite
do this.
musical that was riding on the coattails of Oh Calcutta.
Don't do
All
this.
about tits.
Don't do this.
See, and I thought we were going to talk about Chess the board game. I had so many important...
Yeah, Josh, you and your fucking tabletop games.
Yeah, I took all of these
Fucking
notes about
nerdy ass.
various gambits and things of
Yeah,
that
rolling
nature.
your D32s.
Kings,
That's
queens,
right,
etc.
Brian.
Chess is very formative for me in terms of musical theater. And Jake, I wonder if you also had a very formative experience with chess.
It's funny that you asked that because in preparing for this guest spot, I was like, I want to just do, this is not the first podcast I've guested on to talk about chess. And
Yeah,
I thought
I
to
think-
myself, I just want to do a better, I want to do more justice both to the piece and to myself
You
than I
want
did
to
the last
improve upon the chess
time. Oh,
podcast
for sure.
appearance?
Yeah, and the next time will be better than this one because
just
I'm going to
keep-
do this till I die.
Holding your blade.
Yeah. That's great. It's like you have a podcast gimmick, but it's not for your own podcast. It's for everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah, each time you go on a podcast to talk about chess means there's one less variation left to be played.
It's this. The only other thing I go on podcast to talk about, which is a recommendation, is Joel Schumacher's Brat Pack masterpiece, St. Elmo's Fire.
Yeah.
Which is honestly an unbelievable film and like a real like dime piece of the 80s, as is this
It's
musical.
a real break
Yeah.
from your podcast, Blue Balls, which is all about the nude scenes of Tom Selleck.
Jake, tell us about your experience with chess, and then also, if you feel like it, a little bit about your own podcast and what it does. Not that it's that connected with chess, really, but
It's literally not at all. It's
Soccer balls are black and white.
Yeah, well,
like a
sometimes.
chessboard.
Not really though.
Not
in
exactly.
the
Not anymore?
professional sphere. No.
Oh, I've been out of the game since middle school.
So, Jake,
Yeah.
I guess third note, can you also add maybe a solid 60 seconds or so about the nature of modern soccer balls?
Yeah, I will. I'll do my level best. First of all, I got into chess. I saw Chess the Musical as part of the CAPIES program, the National Capital Area something awards, probably, which is like the regional Tonys for the DC area. I grew up in the deep state. It's like this. I stole this from Mike Crumpler and his fucking Dime Square bullshit, but like it's true.
God damn. Josh knows I was trying to never
can't
get
edit
that
that
word. That word can never be spoken here.
I'm so sorry. It's not coming back.
Fucking damn it.
now you got to bleep it. That's the
I
problem.
can't though. I can't.
But it's relevant, I'm stealing it because it's like, I think a big reason that I like this musical is because of the affection that I have for like the game of the deep state, or the like fake idea
Sure,
of the
yeah,
deep
yeah.
state. But I grew up, I was into chess at the board game as a kid because I was a precocious reader and I liked to demonstrate my intelligence to people and get rewarded for it. So I played.
I imagine growing up in the DMV, it's the place where that kind of behavior is very much rewarded.
DMV?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah,
He's got the
The
lingo.
Department of Motor Vehicles?
DC,
Yeah.
Maryland, Virginia.
Oh. In New Mexico, we have an MVD, a motor vehicle division. It's a little different.
In Michigan, we have a Secretary of State.
Yeah, it's fucked up because
Anyway.
it's not the Secretary of State.
No, is it a Secretary of the
Yeah, it
State?
is.
What is happening?
It is. It's the United.
No, but it's like
It's
you
Michigan
don't,
Secretary
you don't
of State.
see the guy.
I
You
know,
don't
but it's an
see-
elected position. You elect the Secretary of State, and one of the things that they have control over is the way that you get your driver's license.
I think
Folks,
this
this
makes
may
more
not
sense to me.
sound relevant to a Tim Rice musical, but it kind of is.
It actually is
shockingly
because of bureaucracy and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
much and how this musical like adores it.
Yeah.
But that's so I didn't know about chess and actually was not that much of a musicals person. Continue not to be much of a musicals person. When I got together with my fiance, she like really onboarded me to all the things that I'd missed. But what I found via this like program, so for the Cappies, to go back to
Yeah.
that, what they did was they got crews. It was like a club in school. You were the critics, and you went to different high schools and saw their programs, and then like gathered with all the other critic teams from all the other high schools who would come to see it and discussed like what was good and what was bad. You wrote reviews, but they were always like gentle, and then you like nominated certain performers.
So how old were you when this happened?
I was like 16, I guess.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went to a school called Stonebridge High School, and I went there. I didn't go there like as a student.
Sure.
To see chess and had never heard of it before.
So they did the high school production of chess.
1,000%. 1,000%. Successfully.
No,
I really loved it.
That makes sense. High school theater directors are the main audience for Chess the Musical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you do a concert version or did you do the Richard Nelson Broadway one with had a much more like robust book to it?
Yeah, it's that one. In fact, I think it's the adapted Richard Nelson Broadway one that like was sort of making the rounds. This is the PDF
Yeah,
that
I think that's
have.
what gets licensed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because it starts with Gregor Vassy, but
Yes.
but in a version where it was played by my friend, so it was gender swapped, making it significantly better.
Oh, so this high school production was one that also had a friend of yours in it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool.
Coincidentally.
All these Langley connections. It's just
Jesus.
The guy playing Walter was actually in the CIA.
Yeah.
It's all right down the street, y'all. We drive by it every Occoquan and fucking the FBI. All
And
these
Quantico?
places.
Is that?
Quantico? Yeah.
I know
absolutely.
that from the CBS show.
This is what I'm saying.
That most of my friends have been extras on because there are so many Irish terrorists on Quantico.
In thinking back on this, I remember this
Yeah.
like actually focal moment because after the show, you talk about who gets nominated for what, and you all sort of come to consensus on it. And one of the things that you nominate is the best song. Which if they get nominated for Best Musical, they get to perform Best Song at the Kennedy Center at the awards.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
sick.
Oh,
Okay.
It's dope
cool.
as hell. So
Yeah.
you're gonna listen. I
you were a kingmaker here.
I was the opposite of a kingmaker.
You initiated a coup.
Well, so you would
perhaps.
imagine like you nominate like for best song something that was like with like a lot of bombast, right? Like
Right.
One Night in Bangkok,
Right.
like
Yeah.
even like the Arbiter's song.
Yeah.
Which charted in England for a while.
I have
Yeah.
a duty as the referee.
Because the thing is about the English, they get their kicks above the waistline.
Sunshine.
Yep.
I stood up and I argued successfully that the song that we should nominate for best song because of its intricacy and its representative qualities was Quartet.
I'm not getting rich. My only interest is in something which gives me the chance of working with the best.
I can only say, I hope your dream comes true till that far off day. I hope you cope with helping number 2.
And distinguished man as used to be, a model of decorum and tranquility, become like any other sport of battleground for rival ideologies to slug it out with glee.
And I won. And I convinced this room of people that they should make these kids perform Quartet at the Kennedy Center if they got nominated for Best Musical, which they did.
Wait, so
I want you to hear my notes about the song Quartet.
Yes, let's hear him.
This song happens.
Okay, hold on. I love Quartet.
Me too.
Quartet rules.
This wasn't like a bad faith thing. It was just,
Yeah.
and it was the first time that I noticed like, oh, most people want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And I can do it to them. And so I turned into the villain that I am today.
and we'll
The
get
John
to
Foster Dulles of the DC Theater Awards scene.
we'll get to Quartet and all of the other lovely songs in chess, but that's such an interesting formative experience of being like oh, I am the king nerd of all fucking nerds, and you fucking bow
Yeah.
down in front of me. And to be able to do it through like rhetorical flourish, you must have felt like the most powerful 16-year-old in the world.
Genuinely,
Yeah.
I did. I was like, oh, I really do. I can convey a cultural importance that like will stick with these people for the rest of it. But all I actually did was force a bunch of teenagers who would have much rather been having fun to do this fucking jigsaw puzzle, goofy ass song, this abbreviated thing, while everybody else got to do like tradition. You know, like, come on.
So we mentioned that there are a lot of versions of this musical.
Yes.
What's that about? They're not that different, are they?
Yo, Brian, you have set me up. Let me set the scene, because to talk about chess truly is to talk about one man named Tim Rice. Because as much as
Never heard of him.
Benny Anderson and Bjorn Ulvaeus wrote the music for this, this is really Tim Rice's baby.
Yeah, and if people are unfamiliar with Benny Anderson and Bjorn Ulvaeus, they are
Well, how
the
dare
B-
you, first of all.
Yeah.
They are the B&B in Ababa.
Right.
Yes.
The famous Swedish pop group that is now back together and may have assassinated one of their PMs.
This is more and more people are saying this. But yeah, so basically there have been a lot of different versions of
Shinzo
chess.
Abe. Sorry, Shinzo Abe. Sorry. Okay.
Shinzo Abe.
There it
That's
is.
it.
Thank you. You
I was
went
up
to the
late
plan.
last night. I was a little behind.
It's okay. I
was
never going to get that.
That was not a pun. That was about a socialist prime minister of Sweden that ABBA very explicitly opposed, who was then assassinated.
Interesting.
By ABBA. They did it.
Wait, okay, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
ABBA.
Yeah, it's ABBA.
ABBA.
I say ABBA.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's,
we're the dirty Americans
This
here.
is a I thought it was settled
Look,
case.
Yeah.
I am of Swedish descent. Okay.
Sure. Tim Rice pronounces it ABBA, though.
Yeah, Tim Rice is fucking wrong all the time.
Yeah,
Yes.
he does a lot of
He's
things
wrong about most things.
Oh, he's so wrong about most things. So Tim Rice has
famously,
a podcast.
his family invented rice.
Yes.
Right, right.
That's he comes from the rice fortune.
not to be confused with his arch nemesis, Tim Wheat.
No, that's Will Wheaton,
But
actually. He gets his money from the
He
wheat.
is a fancy boy, went to, private school where he met Andrew Lloyd Webber.
He's almost like he's aggressively British to the point where it feels a little racist. Like it feels like he's making fun of posh people. And he has a podcast. It's called Get Onto My Cloud.
Yeah.
And
I've been on it a number of times. He's a real gentleman.
exclusively to talk chess, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
We have more Patreon subscribers than he does.
We sure
That's
do.
right.
But he doesn't need patron money. Are you kidding me?
No,
He's Tim
he's
Rice.
probably a lord, I'm assuming.
At this
I don't
point,
know.
probably. The year is 1973.
Is
Tim
it?
Rice really wants to write a musical about the Cuban Missile Crisis. He wants to do it with Andrew Lloyd Webber. Post their Evita success.
That is truly the one that got away. Can you fucking imagine?
Yeah.
If there's one thing I'm like, I want Tim Rice to do more of, it's write about left-wing movements
my God.
in Central South America.
Heinous.
I have a wonderful quote about that coming up from the man's very mouth. But he wanted to write a musical about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but they put that on hold so they could write Evita. Immediately after Evita's done, Tim Rice is like, hey, I really want to do this thing while the Cold War is still like percolating in the way that it is. And
We gotta get in there before it ends.
And he
He saw
pitches
the cracks in the Berlin Wall.
and he and Andrew Lloyd Webber go to see an Icelandic production of Superstar where he's wandering the streets of Reykjavik.
Yeah,
And-
so Iceland is an important place for all of this.
Yes, and in 1973, a couple months before they got there, Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky had the World Chess Championship. So there's all these posters on all the walls. There's all this merch, this chess merch. People are talking about chess in the streets in like this very excited way.
And it was seen as like a referendum on the Cold War. It was like America versus the Soviets. Who has the best brain, I guess? I don't fucking know.
Like it brought
a
like
whole thing.
the Cold War into an intellectual exercise, into sports, basically, for like the brain. But it leads to this wonderful anecdote that Tim Rice gives about wandering the streets of Reykjavik. He says, wandering around the delightful, chilly, dog-free streets of Reykjavik. What? I should make clear, I love dogs, just not on the roads and pavements of cities. What?
Had he just made a trip to Istanbul or
What
something?
is wrong with this guy?
deranged.
What? The weirdest guy. It's like, I love dogs, but I don't like perceiving them.
Oh
Like,
my God.
What the fuck?
I mean, I'm going to say he's spitting.
He hates
Speaking of
Bobby
Bobby
Fischer.
Fischer.
I mean, the one thing you can take away from listening to Tim Rice talk about chess is that the man thinks Bobby Fischer is an insult to the sport. And
okay.
Deeply, deeply.
Tim Rice has opinions on Bobby Fischer
Yes.
about the game of chess.
Yes.
That's
Why?
like, who is he? Who the fuck is he
I don't know.
to make any kind of
Did
judgment
Rice
on
write
this?
this because he's a fan of chess? Like, because he's a big chess fan?
Not
No,
really.
no. Chess is an aesthetic. Clearly,
Right,
like,
yeah.
we'll talk about this when we get to the thing. But it,
I mean,
Yeah.
it's fine to be like against anti-Semitism. Like,
What's happening?
Bobby Fischer turned into a big fuck the Jews guy.
not just turned into. Bobby Fischer may have been that way even before he became.
oh, I'm sure he was.
yeah,
They-
yeah.
that's how it always
Right,
is.
and then 9/11 happened, and he was like, I know how this
I
happened.
can't believe Bobby Fischer was alive for 9/11. That's,
I know
that's
he
where my
was- he was-
Just to
he turned
focus
into
this,
a-
Bobby Fischer was the American chess prodigy, grandmaster, whatever.
Yeah,
who-
he was.
Everybody was searching for him.
Yeah,
like
they're
the
all looking for him.
best player on record. He had done like a perfect game at the U.S. Chess Championships, and as a child, so he was fucking operating at a different level than everybody else. And the U.S. was like, oh yeah, this is our boy. And when this game in Iceland happened, he was getting a lot of nudges from a lot of people in Jake's family who secretly run the government.
That's right.
And so, like, you take a guy who probably is already anti-Semitic, and you actually put him at the heart of like weird clandestine operations and conspiracies,
Right.
And he just goes full bore into like the Holocaust never happened, but it should have, and you know, shit like
Yikes.
that.
But Brian, can I just say that, you know, when he grew up in a broken home, he had a mother who slept around. His dad walked out because he thought he was gay.
Yeah. You gotta
So,
pity
like, you
that
gotta
child.
pity him.
Wait, was
you have
that-
to pity the child.
Was that actually taken from Bobby Fischer's life?
Absolutely
think
not.
so,
No.
no.
Okay.
No. It's
That's-
just it is a thing shoehorned into the end of this play to be like, hey, this guy that's been an asshole to play, actually you should feel
should
bad
feel
for
bad
not
for
liking
him.
him.
Sucks.
I want to
Yeah.
be careful here, though, not to blur the lines too much between
Yeah.
the fictional character of Freddie Trumper, the protagonist of chess.
And
Yes.
the fictional character of Bobby Fischer.
Exactly.
A construction of the
searching for
US
Bobby
government.
Fischer.
Because Bobby Fischer, specifically, once this guy had the opportunity to take on the Soviets in the game of chess and beat them,
Yes.
it was a referendum on everything, or so it was
Yeah,
broadly
yeah.
perceived. It's a major symbolic victory. It's a huge dub for the United States and for the West
Yeah.
at large.
Yeah, and so Tim Rice then like puts the idea on a shelf, and then once Evita's done, he's like, "Hey, Andy, buddy, Andy Lloyd Webber, we got this ready. We can finally fucking go with this chess musical." And Lloyd Webber said, "That sounds like a stupid idea."
And fuck you, and fuck your mother. I'm
Yes.
gonna go kill a cat right now.
Yeah, and then he goes to write Cats instead.
Yeah.
Let's go!
So Cats and Chess happens sort of basically at the same time. Rice looks around a lot for like a collaborator because it's the first time, you know, he's been like, you know, without one in a very
hung out to
long time.
dry.
Hung out to dry by Andrew Lloyd Webber. There's a whole bunch of shenanigans where like he shares a manager with ABBA basically, and then they have a couple meetings and the show's a go, and they decide to make a concept album, which is the same thing that he had done with Andrew Lloyd Webber on
For-
Jesus Christ
yeah,
Superstar
for both
and
of them.
Evita. Because it's just cheaper than mounting a theatrical production. It gets people excited
Yeah.
about the music. They have to see how this thing connects together on stage.
Especially in the 80s, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll go buy the record, because that was still a thing at that point.
Well, and
Your Tim
even
Rice impression is
even into
impeccable.
the 90s, Frank Wildhorn did that with Scarlet Pimpernel and Jekyll and Hyde.
Okay.
The concept album, in Tim Rice's own words, the recording of the original concept album of chess took around 21 months, roughly the same as the gestation period of an African bush elephant.
What?
What is wrong with this man?
Oh my God.
I love it.
The album is a hit. Like they make a whole bunch of music videos for very
Yep.
specific songs. The
Which are
Arbiter
awesome,
song,
by the way.
Yeah,
oh
Nobody
my God, the
Sighed.
music videos are fucking
Yeah, they're
deranged.
unbelievable.
Yeah, so One Night in Bangkok is the most well-known of
Yes.
these songs.
Bangkok, Oriental setting, and the city don't know what the city is getting. The creme de la creme of the chess world in a show with everything but Yul Brynner.
and it is sung by Anthony Stewart Head's brother, Murray Head.
I think he rules on that concept album, but
Yeah, except for when he doesn't, which is also so weird. Like when he goes up in the reference to, we'll talk about it, but like he cracks. He can't sing the score.
Sure.
Because nobody can.
No, it's an impossible score.
it destroyed Adam Pascal's voice even more so than Rent, I think, because it's too high. Let's be very clear here. Most of the songs for Freddie are just way, way, way too high. Then they're like, okay, so we have this concept album. We got a lot of like traction behind it. Let's put this thing on stage. But the concept album had a book by Tim Rice, and it's very loose.
Yes.
They're called The American and The
a book
Russian.
as in there's actual dialogue?
Yes.
It's not just sung through?
Yeah, and so they wanted to do that in the London production, and then they put it on stage, and we're like, you know what? It works better without any dialogue. So they just sing the whole thing all the way through.
Oh, boy.
And sung-through musicals obviously somewhat on trend right now.
Yeah.
Les Mis would be,
Right.
a year or
because
two
a
later.
lot of these musicals were starting as albums, and then they just put
Right.
the album on stage. You
And
know?
this is where things get a little bit tragic because the original London production was going to be staged by Michael Bennett of Chorus Line fame.
Oh my God!
yeah.
And Michael Bennett died.
And Michael Bennett gets too sick and drops out of the production, but the set's already commissioned. Everything's already good to go. And
they drag in Trevor Nunn, right?
And they drag in Trevor Nunn.
Can you imagine?
And
with the
Trevor
same set.
Nunn is
Whiplash.
not that far away from having done Nicholas Nickleby at this point,
Yes,
too.
yes. And also,
So, like,
Les
he's
Mis,
he's not the dry, boring guy that everyone knows Trevor Nunn to be now.
Right.
He's a guy who did this incredibly audacious, like, 9-hour fucking tour de force with Roger Rees.
He was really on the cutting edge of like direction at the time.
Yeah.
And you know, it's reviewed pretty okay. I think in London, it's not
the
like
British
rave.
don't really have good taste
No,
in
they don't.
musicals, and
No.
this hit the sort of middle of the road desires that they all have.
A lot of people were very confused as to what the plot was.
As
yeah.
they should have been.
As they
Because
should have
it's
been,
a
barely.
sung-through show, and
Yeah.
you can't make sense of the things that are fucking happening, which is the problem with every sung-through show.
Except for Les Mis.
And even more so,
I would
the lyrics
argue.
are completely unintelligible half of the time.
Yes.
Right?
absolutely.
Like if your book is only lyrics, at least like Natasha Pierre has the like, you know, they're very crisp in their diction.
Right.
Don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and the thing is like we'll get to the like actually like Tim Rice's lyrics, which there's a lot to say about his writing style in general. But he had a rebuttal for anyone who was confused about the London production, which was this: I have to admit that there are moments in the London show where you don't know what's happening, but then we all don't get the words of the magic flute the first time. So this was sort of the hubris that this guy was
They're
walking
in
into Broadway
German.
with.
Hell yeah.
And also, people don't go to operas for the story. They go to operas to be fancy boys.
So many possible.
Hey there, you are listening to a preview of a premium episode of The Worst of All Possible Worlds. If you'd like to listen to the rest of this, head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/worstofall. And you can listen to not only the rest of this episode, but our entire backlog of premium episodes, bonus episodes, and if you subscribe at the $10 tier, you will get an extra episode of the podcast every single month. Again, that is patreon.com/worstofall. Hope to see you there.